you're on Lane Kiffin, let me make a case for an even crazier name that I think should get consideration, and that's Jon Gruden. And look, this is where I'm going to acknowledge, like, there are two sides to my head. Two sides to my head. There's my college football analyst side that's been doing this for a long time. And then there's my logic over everything and just throw everything else away and just ask yourself, what do they want? I believe the logic side of me, not the college football analyst, the logic side of me believes that Penn State wants a home run Rockstar hire. They want somebody that will move the press conference needle. You don't fire James Franklin right now unless you plan to bring in a name that's so huge that everybody's going to say, oh, my God. Now, there's no proof of concept that Gruden works in the college game at all. But we also know that the Nevada State Supreme Court has ruled 7-0 that his court hearing against the NFL will be heard, and he's going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. I've had several people that are thinker in the know tell me that the NFL's offered him huge settlement dollars, and he has said no to that. He wants to clear his name. If he's suing the NFL, he's not going to get back into coaching. So now what does he do? If he can't coach at the NFL level because he's in the middle of what could be a lawsuit worth hundreds of millions of dollars, well, he can go coach in college football right now. He's got all that barstool sort of equity as everybody's fallen in love with the personality of Jon Gruden. He'd be a rock star. Is he a great college football coach? He doesn't know anything about college football. But look at his track record in the pros. He didn't love draft and develop. That's not how he won with the Raiders or the Buccaneers. How he won with those two teams was, I'm going to go get free agents that have played a ton of football and put them in my system so I don't have to teach them. I just have to teach them my system. In the modern college football game, he can use NIL and transfer portal to go get a bunch of kids that are 23, 24, 25, played a ton of college football, bring them in on a year-to-year basis, and just rely that can he come up with a system that outworks everybody else. I can see the math to the Rockstar hire, even though I know, Caroline, the argument is that, well, he's never coached any college football.
I will poke 3 holes in your argument. 1, at this point, there's a fair argument to be made that Jon Gruden might be a better social media personality than he is a coach. He's passionate about football. He loves football. I get it. But that doesn't make you a good coach. Number 2, I think there is going to be a college team out there that at least kicks the door in or kicks the whatever it is, knocks on the door of Jon Gruden. But that might be a team that is willing to be a more interesting football team than it is a competitive football team. When you hire someone like Jon Gruden, you will be in the headlines. I don't know if it's necessarily for the best reason. I think Penn State holds themselves to a higher standard. That's no disrespect to Jon Gruden, but I think Penn State holds themselves to a higher standard than the circus that will inevitably ensue if you hire a guy like Jon Gruden. Thirdly, and I want to be very sensitive here, Penn State and its football program has been riddled with controversy. Jon Gruden right now is in the middle of a controversy. Penn State, I don't know if they are in the market for inviting any more controversy in their football program than they've already dealt with over the last several decades.
I know we got to move to the next. My only push to that, because you're right. Everything you just said is right. I would just implore people to go look at the controversies around James Franklin at the end of his time as Vanderbilt and realize that did not keep James Franklin from being hired at Penn State. I don't want to get into all of it. It's too much to get into in this segment. Google James Franklin, Vanderbilt, and you'll see some of that. That's my only pushback.
That is a fair pushback, but I will offer up another name that is not nearly as sexy as Lane Kiffin or Jon Gruden. It is not nearly as much of a household name, but I think he's a really quality candidate that you're going to start to hear some buzz around, and that is Alex Golesh at USF. Alex Golesh took over a 1-win football team, took USF to a bowl game last year, beat Florida this year, absolutely beat the doors off of North Texas this past weekend. And I think that USF is now on a fast track to being the Group of 5 representative in the college football playoff in just year 2. Alex Golesh has done so much with not a whole heck of a lot. Same reasoning with Lane Kiffin. What can Alex Golesh do with more resources and more money and, more of a brand behind him to recruit with? The biggest reason, though, I think Alex Golesh should be in consideration for Penn State is kind of the same rationale that we use with presidential elections. I feel like every presidential election, the general American public elects the opposite of the president that we just had. That it's, okay, you had a Democrat in office, now a Republican will be, voted in, and vice versa. A Republican's in, then a Democrat will be voted in. If I'm Penn State, I'm thirsty for something different. Penn State for so long has been a boring football team to watch. Played good defense, they run the football, not very explosive in the pass game. And that's really been what's kind of been standing in the way of Penn State getting to a national championship and Penn State beating the Ohio States and the Michigans of the Big Ten on a consistent basis. Alex Golesh will bring explosiveness to your offense. Think back to 2022, that Tennessee team with Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt. They're putting up like a cajillion points and passing yards every single game. Alex Golesh was the offensive coordinator of that offense. He's brought that to USF, that air it out, high scoring, high passing, explosive offense. Can you imagine an explosive Penn State offense? Isn't that what Penn State fans want? Just something different, an exciting brand of football to watch? Because Penn State was boring and not winning championships. Maybe you might not win a national championship in the first couple of years with Alex Golesh, but you're at least going to be fun to watch.
I would love to poke a hole in your theory on Golesh. I think that he's actually, in a lot of ways, the absolute perfect hire. The absolute perfect hire. What he's accomplished where he is, and then he goes to the resources he would have at Penn State. And I think because he'd be making a jump in the eyes of many program-wise, he would get the grace of a year or two of, okay, we're building something, we got to get there. And some of these Rockstar names wouldn't get that same level of grace. Not to say the Golesh isn't a Rockstar. Caroline, I think that's a great call by you. All right, I'm going to give you one more name, and this is where everybody thinks we're going to give you Curt Cignetti, the head coach of Indiana football. I'm not going to give you that name, and we'll tell you why later in the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, find the clip. We'll find it. You'll find it later. I'll tell you why I don't think Curt Cignetti is a candidate at all for this job. I do not think he's going to be the head coach at Penn State. So when I look at people I do think would make a viable, understandable pitch, Clark Lea from Vanderbilt. We just talked about James Franklin making the leap from Vanderbilt to Penn State. And part of the reason he was able to do that is because he did the unthinkable. He made Vanderbilt competitive year in and year out. Don't blink now, but the 2024 SEC College Football Coach of the Year, Clark Lea, has Vandy as a top 15 program currently in the AP poll. He has Vandy as a team that could actually right now, this is not a misspeak, make the college football playoff. So he's turned this Vanderbilt program around to the point that now, I think they're number 17 actually, but you look at where they are in the rankings, they're a top 20 team for Vandy. And then look at how they're doing it. Clark Lea is a defensive mind. He comes from Notre Dame there where he has a ton of experience, obviously with the big program. Defense is one of the things he can quickly sort of implement in Penn State. And I know explosive offense is what puts butts in the seats. But if you got to figure out how to win quickly with the new coach, bringing in somebody that can bring in a certain attitude and certain style defensively makes a lot of sense. There are challenges to recruiting to Happy Valley. In the modern climate, there are challenges to what it means for commute, for what it means for getting recruits' families to get to all the games, for just how easy it is to get there, the time zone, the in and out, hotels around the facility. These are all things you might roll your eyes to, but they're challenges in recruiting. Well, Clark Lea has been dealing with the challenges of recruiting at Vanderbilt. That is not an easy place to get great athletes to go to, considering some of the issues that Vanderbilt has with their academics and trying to get kids in the door, right? So you look at what Clark Lea has been able to do at Vandy, which is a program that's just starting to fund itself to that level and just starting to take football truly seriously. And then ask yourself, what could he do at Penn State? Where, frankly, he can recruit at the highest possible level. I believe he can get anybody to come into Penn State. You get good kids to come to Vandy, you can get great kids to come to Penn State. He's proven he can find a quarterback in the transfer portal. He's the one that found Diego Pavia and said, hey, I want to do this. He's proven he's willing to change his offensive mindset to win more football games. He did that at Vandy. He's proving he's willing to evolve, and he's turned Vanderbilt, of all places, into a consistently good program. Vanderbilt football today, right now, this week, is considered to be a better football team than Penn State. Clark Lea did that, and he did it, I think, largely single-handedly, bootstraps. I know he's got so many connective ties to Vanderbilt, and I hope he stays at Vanderbilt forever. But I also look at the Diego Pavia experiment for Vandy and say, hey, that's going to end at the end of this year. And then he's going to have to go back into the transfer portal and find another Diego Pavia. That's difficult to do. The iron right now is incredibly hot around Clark Lea. To me, Caroline, it would make a ton of sense to strike while that iron is hot and put myself in a situation where I can go to a program where I can have sustained success and I can compete against the biggest of the best every single week. I think Penn State's a bigger job, obviously, and Clark Lea is the perfect name to come in and take it.
I think Clark Lea is a fantastic culture fit. at Penn State. 'Cause like you said, he's very, put your bootstraps on, nose to the grindstone, no nonsense, hardworking, do it the hard way, do it the right way. I have so much respect for Clark Lee. If you ever have the privilege to talk to Clark Lee or just to listen to Clark Lee, like I feel like I am a wiser, smarter individual just being in Clark Lee's presence. I cannot say enough glowing things about who Clark Lee is as a developer of young men, a man himself, a person overall. But if I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a Penn State fan, let's look at Clark Lee's history at Vanderbilt. 2020, they went 0-9 in that weird COVID season. 2-10 the next year. 5-7 the year after that. 2-10 in 2023. So we're now 4 seasons in, and Clark Lee hasn't made a bowl game. In walks Diego Pavia. Last year, they went 7-6, went to a bowl game for the first time since 2018. And then this year, obviously, they're 5-1. They're a top 20 team. There's a lot of excitement around this Vanderbilt team. When we talk about the success of Vanderbilt, just looking at Clark Lee's history, how much credit do we give Clark Lee and how much credit do we give Diego Pavia? Clark Lee gets credit for bringing in Diego Pavia, for bringing in Jerry Kill, for evaluating his team and his entire roster and saying, we need some changes around here. What we're doing isn't good enough. So let me go to New Mexico State, a team that went into Auburn and beat Hugh Freeze, and let me get their quarterback, let me get their offensive coordinator, their head coach. I give Clark Lee so much credit for that. But at the same time, going 7-6 and beating Alabama at Vanderbilt will get you a statue. Going 7-6 at Penn State will get you fired. Is what we've seen from Clark Lee enough of a sample size and good enough to justify a job at Penn State?
It's going to be an interesting. I think the Vandy defense and speed and line play deserve some credit, but I think you're very much right. That can take a quick downfall. Quick names on the honorable mention list. Brent Key, we love Georgia Tech.
Love
obviously, we love what he's done. I like that one.
Style
Matt
fit,
Campbell.
but maybe too much of a style fit. Like maybe it's too much of the same thing.
Yeah. What about you? Have Matt Campbell on your list?
Yeah, Matt Campbell from Iowa State. I think that he is going to get a whole lot of looks for some of these job openings, whether it's Arkansas, Penn State, any jobs that might come open, Florida. I just have so much respect for Matt Campbell and what he's been able to do to make Iowa State a legitimate Big 12 contender.
Dan Mullen's undefeated at UNLV right now. We know that's a stepping stone job. Could be. What about Fran Brown? Fran Brown, Syracuse won some football games. I just don't think Fran Brown. I really like the job he's doing at Syracuse. I don't think the record or the sexiness around it is enough for Penn State fans to say, "Huzzah, we got Fran Brown!" Like I don't think he's that much of a galvanizer for the fan base.
What about Matt Rhule? He went to Penn
That's
State.
The other one everybody wants.
He's from State College, went to high school and State College. My question about Matt Rhule is, what has he done at the college level? Like, yes, he brought Baylor, those great years at Baylor. But like at Nebraska, like you bring in Dylan Raiola, who, was like the chosen one in Lincoln. But like, I don't think Nebraska looks like a playoff contender. Is Matt Rhule done enough?
I spent a lot of time with Matt, Coach Rhule at Baylor. And I think he's a great culture setter to bring, something from the bottom to the middle. And it takes him a minute to do that. He's a 3 or 4 year we reset culture guy. I don't think that's where Penn State is. All right,
he doesn't need a reset culture. He's got great culture.
That's why I don't think Rhule is a good fit. He's not the only one that's not a good fit. Everybody's telling you Kurt Cignetti is going to end up being the next coach at Penn State. It's a hot name.